Beyond the gates, spoilers tease that chaos is about to erupt in the sterile, polished halls of Rosebridge General Hospital, where Dr. Madison Montgomery has built a careful, calculated life. She's respected by her peers, trusted by her patients, and more recently, she's found something she never thought she would have: love. Chelsea, vibrant, assertive, and fearless, entered her life unexpectedly, and what started as casual interest has grown into something real. For a time, they believed they had found sanctuary in each other's arms. But that illusion begins to dissolve the moment Allison walks through the hospital doors. Allison arrives with a mask of calm concern, claiming she's suffering from a mysterious condition, one that no other physician has been able to diagnose. She insists she needs treatment from Madison specifically, that no one else is capable of understanding the complexity of her symptoms. The moment she steps into Madison's office, it becomes clear Allison is not here for healing. She's here for disruption. Madison sees right through it. Allison's motivations are deeply personal and laced with jealousy. She is Chelsea's ex-girlfriend, the one Chelsea swore she would never speak to again. Their breakup had been toxic, filled with betrayal, manipulation, and a final confrontation that left emotional scars on both sides. But Allison never let go. She followed Chelsea from afar, watching as her ex moved on it just with someone else, but with someone who seemed to bring out a version of Chelsea she had never seen. To Allison, Madison is the enemy, and hospitals are just a new battlefield. Madison plays along for a while. She keeps things professional, documents every interaction, and avoids confrontation. But inside, she's furious. She's worked too hard to let someone like Allison dismantle her progress. Her instincts tell her to walk away, but her heart belongs to Chelsea, and she knows that if she's going to protect their relationship, she has to confront the threat head-on. When Chelsea visits Madison during her lunch break, Madison doesn't sugarcoat anything. She tells her that Allison is faking her condition. Chelsea is stunned, but not surprised. She had always feared Allison would come back. What she didn't expect was how bold her ex had become. Fueled by rage, Chelsea storms into the hospital the next day, demanding to speak with Allison. The confrontation is loud, messy, and full of venom. Patients and staff alike catch glimpses of it through cracked doors and hallway echoes. Allison plays the part of the victim expertly, accusing Madison of physical abuse. She claims Madison slapped her after discovering her lie about being ill. Hospital administration is forced to get involved. An inquiry is opened. Allison spins a web of emotional manipulation, painting Madison as a cold, calculating predator who hides behind a facade of empathy. She throws in half-truths about Madison's past, embellishing every detail to make her look like someone capable of violence. But Chelsea doesn't believe her. She refuses to be swayed by the same tactics that once held her captive. She stands by Madison, providing testimony to counter Allison's claims. Madison is cleared of all charges, and for a brief moment, it seems like Allison's plot has failed. Only it hasn't. Not completely. Allison retreats, but she doesn't disappear. Instead, she begins digging into Madison's background. She speaks to old colleagues, stalks family connections, even bribes an employee at the hospital's HR department. Her persistence pays off when she uncovers a sealed record that sends shivers down her spine. The name of Chelsea's father appears more than once in Madison's file. At first, Allison thinks it's a clerical error. But the deeper she digs, the more she finds. DNA records. Family court documents. A sealed paternity suit. Madison Montgomery is not just Chelsea's girlfriend. She is her half-sister, born from an affair Chelsea's father had during a short-lived separation decades ago. Allison smiles, a genuine, triumphant smile for the first time in weeks. This is more than a weakness. This is a weapon. She gathers the documentation, prepares her approach, and waits for the perfect moment to strike. That moment arrives during a charity gala hosted by the hospital. Madison and Chelsea attend together, a rare public outing that represents their willingness to be seen, to be open, to stand in love without apology. Allison arrives in a low-cut red dress, all elegance and calculated charm. She keeps her distance, sipping champagne, watching the couple laugh and mingle. Then she makes her move. She pulls Chelsea aside, subtly, under the guise of needing to talk. Chelsea hesitates, but follows. In the privacy of a hallway, Allison drops the bomb. She knows everything. About Madison. About her father. About the blood they share. Chelsea's face drains of color. She doesn't speak. Allison doesn't give her the chance. She shows her copies of the documents. She tells her that the relationship she's built with Madison is not just controversial, it's incestuous. She paints the picture of a betrayal so deep that it poisons everything. Chelsea stumbles back into the event, shaken. Madison sees her face and rushes to her side. But Chelsea won't speak. Not yet. That night, they don't go home together. Days pass. Madison sends messages. Chelsea doesn't reply. The silence is suffocating. Madison goes to her apartment. She's not there. She waits. She's not welcome. Every minute stretches into a spiral of anxiety. Finally, Chelsea reaches out. They meet in a quiet park where they once spent early dates laughing under the stars. The mood is colder now. Chelsea asks if it's true. Madison says yes. She had always known. Her mother had told her about the affair, but they never knew the full extent of it until the paternity test came in years later. Madison had buried it, convinced it didn't matter, because when she met Chelsea, she hadn't known who she was. By the time the truth surfaced, Madison was already in love. Chelsea listens, but says nothing. The betrayal cuts too deep. Madison says she kept the truth to protect them. Chelsea replies that the truth can never be protection if it's wrapped in silence. They part with no promises. No declarations. Just distance. And somewhere in the shadows, Allison watches. Not out of satisfaction anymore, but uncertainty. Because even she can't predict what comes next. Chelsea must now decide if love can survive something as devastating as shared blood. And Madison must reckon with the possibility that her silence cost her the only thing she truly cared about. Allison has done what she set out to do. But whether she has truly won, or simply torn open a wound too dark to ever heal, remains to be seen. The days following the revelation tore through Chelsea like wildfire. She shut off her phone, left her apartment, and drove hours out of the city to a beach house her family owned but rarely visited. The air, the sea, the isolation, it was all supposed to help. But nothing could quiet the storm in her chest. Her mind ran in loops, chasing the image of Madison's face as she confessed, tracing every moment of their relationship and recontextualizing it through this new, terrible truth. She had loved Madison. Fiercely. Deeply. In a way she had never loved anyone before. And now that love felt radioactive. Back in the city, Madison was unraveling. Her work suffered. Her colleagues noticed her slipping focus, her curt responses, her long absences between patients. For the first time, her armor cracked. Chelsea had been the center that kept her whole. Now, every minute away from her felt like being pulled into orbit without gravity. Allison, meanwhile, remained oddly quiet. She had expected Chelsea to return to her if not for love, then for comfort. But that didn't happen. She sent one message, a short one, "I hope you're okay." It went unanswered. Still, she believed she had won. Madison and Chelsea were done. That much was clear. What wasn't clear, however, was the cost of that victory. Madison took time off work. She contacted a geneticist, hoping to rule out any chance of the test being wrong. But it wasn't. The results were conclusive. She and Chelsea were half-sisters. Her mind flashed back to the early days of their relationship, coincidences, the sense of familiarity. It all seemed sinister now. But she knew they had entered into that love blind. Not in denial. Not in deception. Just unaware. Chelsea returned to the city after nearly a week. She avoided her usual routines. She couldn't face familiar places. But she needed answers. Real ones. Not filtered through Madison. Not twisted by Allison. So she went to the source of everything, her father. She confronted him with the documents, the DNA results, the timeline. He broke down. He confirmed everything. The affair. The paternity suit. The deal to keep Madison's existence a secret from both families. He had lived in fear that one day it would all come crashing down. And now it had. Chelsea left without another word. Her father's shame did nothing to ease the betrayal. Meanwhile, Allison began to spiral. With Chelsea still silent, her victory felt hollow. Her obsession with tearing Madison down had left her isolated. She began drinking again. She missed work. She stared at old photos of her and Chelsea, searching for signs of happiness that maybe had never been there. Then she made a decision she thought she never would. She confronted Madison one final time. They met in a dimly lit bar, one of those rare moments where both were raw, stripped of pretense. Allison looked more fragile than Madison had ever seen her. "You got what you wanted," Madison said flatly. Allison didn't smile. "I didn't do it just to hurt you." "Then why?" Allison hesitated. "Because I loved her. Because I couldn't let you in. Because watching her move on without me made me feel like I was drowning. And I wanted you to drown too." Madison nodded slowly. She understood the cruelty in that kind of pain. But there was no sympathy left in her. "You didn't just hurt me. You broke her. You broke the only good thing either of us ever had." Allison asked her a question then, quietly. "Would you take it all back, if you could? Knowing what you know now?" Madison stared at her glass. Then said no. "Because it was real. Even if it can't be anymore." The conversation ended there. They left separately. That night, Madison drafted a letter to Chelsea. Not a plea, not a justification. Just a record of her feelings, her remorse, and one final truth. She had loved her not as a sister, not as some twisted mistake, but as a person. Fully. Fearlessly. That love hadn't been wrong. Only the circumstances had. Chelsea received the letter days later. She read it twice. Then again. And again. And eventually, she cried. Weeks passed. The space between them remained vast, but began to thaw. Chelsea didn't respond directly. Instead, she sent Madison a book. It was one they had talked about during their first date. Inside was a note. 5 words, "I don't hate you." Madison read it over and over. The two women didn't fall back into each other's arms. That wasn't possible. But they did meet. Once. In a park. No makeup. No makeup conversation. Just two people with shared history, bound not just by blood, but by choice, by heartbreak, by growth. Chelsea said, "We can't go back." Madison agreed. "But we don't have to go to war either." Allison never re-entered their lives after that. She left the city, moved back to her hometown, and reportedly started therapy. No one knows what happened to her after that. Some say she joined a wellness retreat. Others say she disappeared entirely. Chelsea and Madison chose something different. They chose peace. In time, they found ways to be in each other's lives. Not as lovers. Not even as family. But as survivors of something complicated and painfully human. In a world where so much had gone wrong, that was more than enough. Months passed, and the scandal faded into quiet memory, but neither Madison nor Chelsea was ever truly the same. They didn't speak often, but when they did, it was marked by the kind of mutual respect born from surviving something unspeakable. The city around them moved on as staff at the hospital, new relationships among old friends, new faces in familiar cafes, but the unspoken history between them lived beneath the surface like a shared scar. Chelsea returned to her art, throwing herself into canvases that reflected her confusion, her grief, her resilience. One gallery exhibit titled Blood and Bone garnered attention for its raw, haunting imagery: two figures circling each other, but never touching, their limbs melting into tangled roots, faces blurred. She never explained the meaning, but Madison came to the opening night and stood silently before the centerpiece for nearly an hour. They didn't talk that evening. They didn't need to. Madison's focus returned to medicine, but with new purpose. She left the hospital and began working in trauma recovery, helping victims of identity crises, abuse, and complex family dynamics. She started writing 2 essays under a pseudonym, exploring questions of moral complexity, boundaries of love, and the human capacity for forgiveness. Her words struck chords in quiet corners of the internet. Allison was never heard from again in person, but her influence lingered. A rumor floated that she had entered inpatient psychiatric care after a breakdown. Others claimed she'd become a life coach in Oregon, rebranding herself completely. Chelsea never confirmed or denied anything when asked. Madison, for her part, hoped Allison had found help, even if she couldn't forgive her. Then one day, nearly a year later, Chelsea called Madison. "I need to talk to you. Not as family. Not as anything from before. Just as someone who understands." They met at the beach just outside the city, the same place Chelsea had fled to after the truth came out. The wind was sharp, the ocean gray, but they sat in the sand like old friends. "I'm seeing someone," Chelsea said. Madison smiled gently. "Good. It's different," Chelsea continued. "Safe. But not everything. And I keep wondering if I'll ever have everything again. Or if I used it all up on you." Madison didn't respond at first. Then she reached down, grabbed a small stone, and turned it over in her fingers. Maybe love isn't about finding the person who completes you. Maybe it's about finding someone who reminds you how whole you already are. Chelsea blinked tears away, laughing softly. "Still writing those anonymous essays, huh?" Madison shrugged. "Someone has to say the hard things." They sat there until the sun set. There were no promises. No confessions. Just presence. Before they left, Chelsea said, "I'm glad you existed. Even if we couldn't." Madison replied, "We did. And that matters." They hugged one last time, not goodbye, but thank you. And as they walked their separate ways down the beach, the waves erased their footprints behind them, but not the path they had taken together. Sometimes, survival was the truest ending of all.